If you absolutely have to shoot your camera's viewfinder, the Romeo M17 is the best optic around. Enclosed optics used to mean a really big deck height, a giant mailbox sitting on top of your slide, and even the SIG Romeo 2, as good as it is, which fits onto a Delta Point Pro footprint, rides pretty high on the slide. The Romeo M17 sinks that sight down to co-witness with standard height sights. The only problem is that it takes the contract M17 slide featuring the SIG lock cut, which they have patented in order to get at this optic, which you have to be in the military to get until now.
Welcome back to the Humble Marksman channel, but before we get started, what do you call a smart pig? Cunningham. Dad jokes are a really great way to get people, you know, embarrassed, like your coworkers, your wives. You had to sit through that. It's just a great thing to do. I'm David, and this is the SIG SAUER Romeo M17 optic. And I know you bros are probably like, oh, but you're not Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics. Bros, I got this up on a ladder and dropped it from 100 inches in the air. That's way higher than a shoulder height drop test. But I did try and, you know, do some fence post punching and all that good stuff, just to give you guys the flavor that you're used to. Now, this is a Romeo M17 on the M17 contract upper, which SIG SAUER is now selling as an assembly. So if you're in the P320 ecosystem, you can get your very own M17 upper. And this is a Brouwer M1811 frame with an FCU I picked up from the gun store. Friends at YouTube are probably freaking out. Don't worry, guys, rest easy. None of this is internally modified. It's just kind of slapped together.
SIG SAUER calls this the most indestructible pistol sight ever. It's made in their plant in Wilsonville, Oregon, to be compliant with military protocols for sourcing electronics from allied nations to the US. US hands are putting it together. The downside to that is a couplefold, and the first is obviously price. This sucker is going to cost about $800, and you have to mount it on the SIG lock cut slide. That slide cut isn't on many guns, and SIG has patented, oh, that's a weird word to say, patented, whatever it is. SIG has a patent on it, and it's apparently part of the secret sauce for making the sights work so well. SIG SAUER recently started selling the M17 upper with the Romeo M17 attached, so if you're already in the 320 ecosystem, good luck, you can get there. But also SIG is releasing the M17X, which comes with the sight already mounted.
Now, this is a media sample that was sent to me to do content with, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. I'm just going to try and break it and let you make your own decision with the information that we provide.
So as far as an enclosed optic is, it has a similar housing geometry to the Romeo X, which I drove a nail with and did a drop test, and it had no issues. And this drop test shows how it could stand up to abuse, but a lot of you won't feel good about it until Aaron Cowan does it, even though I can show you this one from 100 inches in the air. The sight itself performs pretty brilliantly. It's only a 2 MOA with a 32 MOA ring reticle, which is okay. I still wish they would do a 6 MOA dot, but the glass is an aspherical lens with a green-gray tint, and it is super clear with no distortion. The reticle has a bunch of brightness settings, including night vision ones if you need to pretend like you operate, but more importantly, even though the window is small, roughly the size of an Acro P2 window, because it's so low down on the slide, it feels very much like just using iron sights, and the window size isn't obnoxious.
The sight is powered through a CR1632 battery with a stated runtime of 20,000 hours, and some of you guys are already firing up the comments to say, that's way less than what the other guys say, and you know what? You're right, but at the same time, all of you recommend changing the battery on a 1-year interval, and 20,000 hours is 3.5 years.
Since SIG is not locked into a footprint of an optic cut and have a gun company and an optic company, creative things can happen. The deck height is lower on this sight than any of the mailbox style optics, so it's easy to shoot and pick up as standard iron sights. The SIG lock cut and the housing design allow for the optic to be torqued down to 40 inch-pounds, which is nearly 3 times what the other sights are doing. Is that a good thing or just a thing thinking about it? If the optic is tighter to the slide, there's less room for movement when it takes a shock, so it'll maintain zero better. The shroud design conceals pretty well despite being a duty optic, a byproduct of how low it rides. The shroud design also isn't super thick around the bezel despite the door on the side, so it doesn't create quite the tunnel vision effect some of the other enclosed sights have. It's very shootable, just a little orb floating over the target.
The optic is adjusted via the buttons on the left-hand side of the optic. They are protected by this little metal bezel, so you have to very intentionally put a press on each one, and each time you press a button, the reticle will actually register the input by blinking, which is a feature I had no idea that I wanted, and it is, I mean, it's a really nice feature to have. One feature that this sight has that no other sights have, at least that I'm aware of, is the rear sight that is built into the rear of the optic has two tritium lamps, and they are a very dull orange. So the front sight, which is the SIG night sight, is a bright green, and the two rear lamps are a dull orange. I can't really video that in the dark, but I was able to capture it in this photo, so that's gonna have to do. So my opinion of the sight. I really like it. It's a really good enclosed emitter optic. I hesitate to say the best or my favorite, but it's easily up there with the other ones. It has a much smaller footprint. I really appreciate the very thin bezel. The super low deck height, getting the window way down there to co-witness with standard height sights, is a feature I didn't realize that I needed. The super clean and crisp glass is super welcome. The M17 upper itself, like the true M17 that's been accurized, is more accurate in my hands than the other 320s that I've had out at the range shooting alongside it. It's a pretty nice piece of gear. I mean, while I'm at it, I really dig the grip module too, although it has nothing to do with the sight.
I picked up the grip module because shooting the Romeo M17X made me want to shoot with a plastic grip module. I tried it with my X grip module from Gray Guns, but wanted to try this one. It is a pretty solid build out.
As close as this comes to like a standard footprint sight is going to be the Romeo X, which for an open reflex sight for concealed carry probably is my favorite in the space. I think the real test is going to be, because these suckers are selling for $800, if there are 2011 builders who start putting the SIG lock cut onto 2011 style pistols. I think you'll start seeing this show up in your Instagram feed, because people prone to buying $800 pistol sights are usually the guys who like to post the, you know, $5,000 Atlas Gunworks guns and stuff like that, or law enforcement agencies that have much bigger budgets than you or I would. As far as a duty sight is concerned, I could say that this would probably be a game changer for a department that had a bunch of officers struggling to hit Q-size targets. Immediately giving them a dot that they'll be able to track onto the screen using the standard height sights is probably going to improve their accuracy. The adoption rate of this style of red dot is probably off the charts. It's an amazing sight. It's only available on P320s probably right now and for the, you know, short future, but at the same time, it's really cool, and I hope it finds its way onto other platforms. Thanks again to Optics Planet. Remember, HUMM has nothing to do with that website. If you've got questions, please sound off in the comments. I appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.